Hi, I'm Catherine O'Brien at happywithbaby.com, and I'm so excited to be here with Cassie Owens, psychotherapist in Atlanta, specializing in maternal mental health. And we are doing another Momma Interview series with her today. So thank you, Cassie, so much for being here. I'm so excited you agreed to do this. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your family and what makes up your family?
Yeah, happy to be here. So I am married to my husband named Russ, and we've been married for, it'll be 12 years in November. And we have two children. My son Brennan is 9. I'll be 10 in October. And my daughter Coco is 8. She just turned 8.
Oh, wow. My son just turned 8 too.
Oh, yeah.
It's a fun age, huh?
Yes, it is a good age. Yeah.
So tell me, how do you balance being a mom, working, and your relationship roles?
Oh my goodness. It's a struggle every day. I feel like I'm constantly trying to find the balance in it all. And I feel like I talk about that at work and I talk about that with my friends, but I think kind of one of the biggest things that I try to do, and I feel like I'm reworking my plan all the time, is setting boundaries in order to find the balance, whether it's, saying no to things, like someone really nice, like great compliment a few years ago was like, we think you would be really great as PTO president. And I was like, that sounds like a lot of work. And I can't add that on my plate right now. I would love to do that, but I can't do that. Yeah. So like saying no to certain things, even like in work stuff, creating boundaries there. Like I think that I have an out of office or an automatic reply that comes when an email is sent. And that is really to help kind of give expectations of when I will respond. So again, setting boundaries of it. Okay, this is when I'm going to respond because this is my work time. And then really trying to kind of shut off my brain when the kids come home and be like, okay, this is kid time. And then of course my husband needs some time too.
Right.
So I don't know if that, I forget now the question, but like how do I balance?
How do you, I think you answered it by setting those boundaries and stuff. Yeah, exactly.
I try.
Well, you're the one that like inspired me to have that out of office email. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it does feel better. Cause then it's like, an email will come in and you're like, oh my gosh, I got to respond right away. But I'm in the middle of dinner with my family or something.
Then you don't feel as bad. And that the expectation is set. And even if you do respond within, the hours, that's okay, but it's not expected. So So.
Cool. So most moms I speak to say there are moments when they're kind of ready to throw in the towel, like things get so overwhelming. Can you describe a time that you felt this way and what got you through it?
Like every day, every afternoon. Kidding.
The witching hour.
I mean, it's hard when kids come home from school, because my kids are 8 and 9 and they're tired and they're hungry and they want snacks. And I mean, I guess now it's different when they were itty bitty, but now it's just, it's hard to manage because I've worked all day. I'm tired and hungry, and they're at school and tired and hungry. And there are some days where I'm just like, I can't deal with anything. And I think for me, and as a therapist, really like acknowledging when I'm really frustrated is helpful. Like, and that it's okay. And that's fine. And that it's okay to feel like I want to throw in the towel. I know I won't, because I love them. But I think, getting support from whether it's like friends or family or my husband saying like, when they were little, it would be like, when are you coming home? Because I need help. And I think having good like self-care type stuff helps to counterbalance the hard time. So like if I do the things that make me feel good, like I like to work out, that's kind of one of my like therapies. If I'm getting that, then like I can handle the harder times better. It doesn't make it perfect, but I think knowing when I need to take a time out for myself, step away. But I mean, it's just hard because
no, it is.
Yeah.
But I think having that you know, I mean, that's part of the balance, is that having that self-care piece in there, which makes a huge difference. Or knowing like, okay, this is hard right now, but I know I'm getting this time for me. So it almost makes it
look forward, something to look forward.
Like easier versus like, there's no light at the end of the tunnel, and
right.
and it's just like overwhelming.
Yeah.
So what do you do? So, I mean, you kind of already said this, but what do you do when you feel overwhelmed, overstretched, or less than?
Remind myself I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
When I feel overstretched, I will probably like talk to my husband and be like, is there something that you can help with? Is there something that I can be really like backing off of? And he'll be like, you know, maybe you don't need to take on X, Y, or Z, or like it's okay if the house is a mess, and I'm pointing to my house because it is a mess and there's dishes everywhere that you can't see. But like just reassuring that like I don't have to have everything nailed down perfectly, because that might be something that would stress me out, is like, you know, having the kitchen look the way it does right now. And so I think talking to him, and I mean, I just know that I'm not the only one, and like that. Yes, some days I'm like, am I a crappy mom? Am I not doing a good job? Am I not spending enough time with him? But I know that there are the moments that no one has a perfect 24/7. It's just not the way life is. So I think just reminding myself, like, you know, I do enjoy moments that I don't feel like I want to throw in the towel, and just kind of thinking back, you know, I think morning and evening are good. Like, you know, cuddle time and snuggle. Yeah. Oh, you're so good. And you're going to bed, you know.
And thank goodness, because then I can go to bed too.
Exactly.
And we'll start all over tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I've also had parents tell me one of the hardest things about being a parent is the comparisons and judgments from other parents. Have you experienced this? And if so, like, how did you cope with that?
You know, I don't really think I've felt that way. I mean, I think more so than like parents. I mean, I think people are always trying to tell you what to do. Like, this would be better. Oh, well, they should sleep here, and you should use this sleep sack, and you should feed them this. But I never felt personally attacked in any way. But I feel like there are a lot of judgments out there in society, whether it's like social media or, you know, feed this way, this is the best way, and if you don't, then you're not good enough. And I think being in our field and just knowing that has kind of made me not really respond, or like even notice if I'm like being judged or whatever. I'm just like, whatever. I don't care. I'm just doing it.
Exactly. Like, do what works for us, you know?
Yeah. I mean, of course, I'm trying to think back to when the kids were like little. I'm sure at that time, because I did struggle a little bit more when they were younger with like anxiety and depression, and just not feeling, you know, right, like that postpartum that year. I probably did what was harder on myself. Probably I judge myself more so than anyone else.
Like comparing like what you think other people are doing versus what you're doing. Yeah,
like comparisons. And I think that is something that a lot of moms do. It's like, oh, my baby this pounds or that. And even saying something as like, oh, well, my baby weighed in X amount of pounds at 6. Some other parent is thinking like, oh crap, your baby is gaining weight. My baby's not eating enough. And then they feel bad. Or like, my baby's this tall. And you're like, oh, my baby's not long enough. And the crawling and the developmental milestones, like they just vary so much that first year that it's, you know, it could hurt, you know, it can make you feel like you're not doing something right, even though that's just the way babies are.
Right. There. And I think that's like having my second really made that so much easier, because I'm like, like she's totally not doing what he did. You know? Like even growing wise, like he like totally took off, you know, was in like a month was in like 3 months to 6 month clothes, you know, where I'm like, what? You're still wearing newborn clothes? How is that even possible? Yeah. So, and it is, and people, I mean, I think say things in a way that they don't realize it comes off. And I think if, you know, we are having a hard time, we're like, oh my gosh, you're judging us. Like, oh wow, your baby's so big. Like, oh my gosh, you're saying my baby's fat. Like I'm doing something wrong.
Too much?
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, whereas I think sometimes they can be innocent comments, but I mean, we do, like, we worry because we're like, want to do the right things. And,
yeah, of course.
Yeah. Okay. So, what do you feel like your greatest personal struggle with the experience of motherhood is, or has been?
Oh, that's a tough one. The greatest personal struggle. I mean, I guess, you know, just experiencing with my first, definitely had like the blue. So, you know, not really having any history with depression or anxiety. The first, definitely like feeling the blues, like, oh, okay, read about this. This is here. And the second, struggling more with anxiety, depression. That was really hard, something unfamiliar. And just not being happy. And I was like, all I've ever, just like I'm sure you've heard a million times, all I've ever wanted to do is be a mom. And now I'm not happy. Like, what's wrong? Like, why am I not being fulfilled right now at this time? But really, it's not fun when you have two babies that are 16 months apart or 17 months apart. Like, it's a lot of work. And I think, like, that's one of the hardest things is like, this is the hardest job ever. I mean, it's so wonderful in so many ways. And like, to see like these people every day that like came out of my body, I'm like, oh my goodness, like this is awesome. And they're so fun, but no one tells you how hard it is 24/7. It's like the hardest job.
Right. Ever. And I think it's like, yeah, you can still love them and still think this is hard and I can't do this some days. And yeah.
Like, you know, you don't get a day off. It's not like you can call in sick and be like, okay, so I'm not going to come to work today. You know, I still need to eat and stuff. So, but yeah, just, I think, you know, the hardest thing is just coming to terms with like, this is not, you know, the way it looks, you know, not the way that you thought it would be. But I think a lot of people have this idea and perception of how, like, oh, well, when I have a baby, I'm just going to like strap them on my back and go like do everything I used to do. And, you know, just how that changes. Like we were talking earlier about how before you have a baby, it's like, you're never that person again. I mean, the core of you is there, but like, you're changed a little bit.
Right. So, yeah, it definitely changes you for sure.
Yeah.
So what's something that has surprised you about being a mom? Maybe something you didn't realize that you'd enjoy, or something you didn't know babies or kids did, or maybe even something you didn't know could bring you so much joy.
I mean, I think like not realizing how much I could love somebody, you know, just, I mean, I love my husband too, you know, but
like, but in a different way.
But in a different way. And like, I didn't know that I could even love someone as much as I loved him. So like, you know, and it's weird. Like every night my kids still like to be snuggled before bed. And like, I remember when they were like itty bitty babies and I'm like, so amazing. Like what happened like 8 or 9 years ago, like just like flew by, like it flies by. And I was thinking about this last night and I'm like, how did it go from like, he was a baby until like he's going to be in 4th grade. Like it's crazy. So I don't know. I mean, it's amazing. It's such a cool thing to see like someone who you brought into this world to learn and grow and read and have their own interests. And like, sometimes they're similar. Like my son said to me, you know, like you and I both have, I think he said like broad shoulders or something. I was like, he was like comparing, he was like, we're alike in this way.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's just cool.
Yeah, it is really awesome. It's awesome to be able to see it, you know, sometimes to be able to look, like kind of sit back and look and like, wow, look at what they're doing and how they think. And
they're their own person, really.
Yeah, it is amazing. How has your relationship with your partner changed, or how has it stayed the same?
Well, I think like pre-kids, I mean, I think what stayed the same is that we love each other. You know, we are a pretty strong couple, I would say. And, but I think how it's changed is that we really have to plan and like schedule time, which is not something we had to do before. It was like, oh, we're going to go to dinner, or we're going to do this, and we're going to hang out together, and we're going to like, and that was something where there was a time, I think when my daughter was 4 or 5 months. And so she was 4 or 5 months and my son was probably like whatever, 20, 21 months.
Mm-hmm.
It's like 2 babies, right? And I'm with them all day and I'm tired and I don't want anyone near me because I'm holding 2 and feeding both of them and all that. And he was like, I feel like we're too, because then he would come home and I'd be like, here you go. And I just want to be alone and like, leave me alone. And it's like, I feel like we're 2 ships passing and that I'm working all day and like I come home and I want to like have conversation and you're like tired of babies and you just want to be alone. And it was the first time where I was like, oh shit. Yeah. We're not really hanging out. And that wasn't like us ever. So it was at that point that we started doing like date night swaps with our neighbor, which was pretty awesome. And from then on, it was just more, I was more cognizant of it. Like, okay, I got to make time for him too. Like, I got to make time for me, make time for my son, make time for my daughter, but I need to make time for our relationship. And that's really important. And that will keep us strong so we can parent, strong. So I think, and that was luckily, he said something early on, because if he didn't, then like, how would I know? But that really triggered, that just was really like, okay, this is important to him. It's important to me too. But when you're in that fog, you're not really.
Yeah. And you're like, I'm tired. Like, I can't think beyond my own needs.
What are you talking about?
I'm like meeting other people's needs all day.
Yeah. So it's changed and now the kids are older and it's, we get babysitters and go out, but we do make sure that we have those times that are just us.
Right.
Which is just harder than it was before. It's just more of an effort, but an effort that we like putting in,
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
How has your relationship with your friends, family, or support systems changed, or how's it stayed the same?
I think with friends, like for sure it's put a strain in a way that, I don't know if you're familiar with Atlanta, but it's a pretty big city. So we're like spread, a lot of people are spread out. Whereas when we were not married in our early 20s, we all kind of lived in the same area, closer to the city. And then as we got married, people moved to the burbs here and there. And so we're spread out. And then you throw kids in the mix and it's harder to meet up and get together. So I think, I have friends that live close by and then and see them. But I think technology has been a big help in that, what's been the same is that like, people are still my friends are still my friends. Right. And I can keep in touch with them over Facebook or text messaging or whatever. I don't really talk to a lot of people on the phone anymore. I don't know if people do that still, like talk on the phone. But but I think it's changed in that way. It's like I don't spend a lot of time with friends, but the same kind of thing in that we'll have to make the plan. And it is kind of like, I just texted one of my girlfriends who I hadn't seen in a while and I was like, let's do happy hour. And it's like, when can we do it? And it's like scheduling night. It's like, this one has activities, that one has activities, husband's traveling, yada, yada, yada. So it's a logistical thing. So I think that part is harder to actually have the face-to-face time. But what's not changed is like, I know any of my girlfriends who I don't see as often. Like I have my core group that I see often, but who I don't see, if I needed something, they would be there, like they would be there. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, I know technology. I think it's like in like the social media, like there's so much positive to it. And then there's the challenges. It's like, how do you use it for good? So and that's a good way.
Yeah. I mean, it's my family is not here in Georgia. Well, my husband's family is, so we get to spend time with them and see them. But one of my sisters is in Oklahoma, the other one's in New York, and my mom's in New Jersey. So, and my dad's family is in New Jersey. So, it's harder when you have kids. You can't just like pop on a plane all the time. And we are able to do that. But of course, again, it's all about just making it happen and prioritizing things that are important and people I want to see.
Yeah. What's one of the greatest lessons you've learned as a mom?
I think, I feel like not just me, but all of my friends and like women in general who become mothers pretty much badasses, I was going to say, because we wear a lot of hats.
Yeah.
And even though it's not this case always, I think a lot of times like women are the default parent and we just know a lot. And I think, what was the original question? No, I forget.
What's one of the greatest lessons you've learned?
The lessons.
What a badass women are.
Yeah. Like, you know, it's just hard work. I mean, it's just a lot of stuff that you can't even plan for. I mean, yeah, there's so many books out there, but I think, what's the lesson that I've learned though? I don't know. It's just I guess, you know, prioritizing and why that's important, and setting boundaries and trying to like be good examples for my children. So like when they grow up, like they know what a healthy lifestyle is. And I don't mean like physical, of course, physical too, but just like with setting boundaries with, okay, you don't want to do a million activities. Like we can't push ourselves in. We have to like have some family time and be grounded. And that's hard. So, but just really prioritizing and
like modeling that for them.
Yeah, totally.
Do you have a favorite quote that inspires you as a mom?
So I saw that question and I was like, oh, I don't really have a quote, but then I thought I do actually. So I have one of those. It's not like some fancy quote, but I have one of those.
We don't need fancy.
I have one of those ID bracelets for when when I would run or something like that, just in case something happened. And it's funny because when you make the plate, you put like your name and like emergency contact information, and you can put a quote, like a personal quote. And my quote is, "You can do it." And I just think that really applies to everything in motherhood. Like, you can do this. Like, you got this. You know, you can do it. Just you know, you'll figure it out.
Yeah. No, that's
there will be a way. Yeah,
that's a good one. Do you have a favorite song that inspires you as a mom?
I didn't think about that. No, I can't think of that. Sorry.
No, that's fine. That's fine. How about I can't live without a gadget or some product or something that you think makes life easier?
I saw that, and the first thing that came to my mind, since I'm out of the baby stage and things have changed
so dramatically
over in 8 or 9 years. But one of the things that I love, is drive through anything. Makes it easier. Drive through pharmacy, drive through coffee, drive through dry cleaners. Makes it easier. And delivery services. Like Instacart.
And those have popped out everywhere now. Those are amazing. Yeah.
That is something that I wouldn't say I can't live without, but it's really, really helpful. Yeah. Anything that can lighten the load. But that's the first thing I thought of when I saw that. I was like, I don't have any gadgets, but yeah.
Those are good ones. And then, so the final question is, what's one piece of advice you'd like to give other moms, or your final thoughts?
I think I would say, that it's, this is a wonderful experience and it's amazing to have children. However, the reality is there are a lot of parts of it that aren't fun. And it's not like you read about, not like you see on TV and even in social media. Like, it's okay to love being a mom and love your children, but sometimes have days where you hate everything, and just really normalizing, like, because I think we have this false expectation that things are going to be perfect all of a sudden when we have kids. Like, I'm going to look really good and I'm going to make meals and everything's going to be clean and neat. And like, that's not real.
Right.
That would be nice, but and I think just normalizing whatever your experience is, it's normal, it's valid. And I think for moms to know that they are not alone in not having always perfect days, really. But to really cherish the times that you do enjoy, because that's what matters. And remembering those moments where you're having a good time, because that's when you're making memories. And I think that's important.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for being here. And you guys should totally check out Cassie's website. She's got some great stuff out there in Atlanta. And I know you guys are doing great things in Georgia for maternal mental health. So thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your wonderful wisdom. And
I hope so.
Yes, definitely. So cool. Take care.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.